The Body Knows, Episode 2. The Body as a Truth Teller. Welcome back to The Body Knows, and I want to thank you for joining me again as we continue this journey into the hidden intelligence of the body. This is a space where we go beyond the surface of behaviour, beyond the labels of good and bad, and into the deeper reality of how our nervous system is constantly shaping the way we feel, the way we react, and the way we connect. In the first episode, we explored what behaviour really means, not just as an action, but as the body's attempt to cope with overwhelm, stress, and expectation. Today, in episode 2, we're going deeper into that silent decision-making process. The nervous system is the real judge of safety and danger, and in ways that are often invisible to us, it tells the truth before we've even had time to think. So let's explore together what it means when we say the body is a truth teller. Let's look at the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn responses, not as abstract theories, but as lived realities. And let's step into real scenarios where these responses shape everything, from our first encounters with new people to the more hidden ways we can be manipulated or controlled. Let's begin. Your nervous system is a truth teller. Long before your thoughts catch up, long before culture tells you what is right or wrong, long before morality or reason enters the room, your body has already judged, safe or unsafe. The scientist Stephen Porges calls this neuroception, the unconscious scanning of the world for cues of safety and danger. It's not a choice, it's built into you. The tilt of a head, the tone of a voice, the twitch of an eyebrow, even the rhythm of a breath. All of it is read in milliseconds, below awareness. Your body knows the truth before your mind can form words. Let's step into a moment that almost all of us know. The first time you meet someone new. Imagine this one-on-one. A man meets a woman meets a man. They've never spoken before. The glance, the smile, the tone of voice, everything is charged because the body is working overtime, deciding, am I safe here? Can I trust? First comes the eye contact. Within 100 milliseconds, the amygdala is already firing, reading micro-expressions for warmth or danger. Is there tension around the eyes? Is the smile authentic, with crinkles that reach the corners? The mirror neuron system reflects back what is seen, firing tiny echoes of the other person's expression. Next comes the voice. The auditory system is exquisitely tuned to tone. A sharp edge in the voice spikes the amygdala. A warm cadence calms it. Porges' polyvagal theory calls this the social engagement system, the vagus nerve linking heart, face, and ear, creating a loop where tone regulates safety. Then posture. Leaning in can signal interest or intrusion. Crossing arms can signal defensiveness or simply comfort. But the body reads it unconsciously against the backdrop of context and memory. And beneath it all, scent. We rarely acknowledge it, but pheromones and body odor feed into the olfactory system, and from there straight into the limbic brain. No translation required. Each of these cues is read faster than thought. The brain's predictive system is constantly updating. Safe, 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 or danger, danger, danger. Sometimes you feel a magnetic pull, sometimes a shiver. Sometimes you walk away saying, I can't explain it, but something felt off. That's neuroception. The body is telling the truth. The first glance, the first sound of a voice, the first step into someone's presence. That is all it takes for the nervous system to begin its silent work. Neuroception, Stephen Porges called it, to distinguish it from perception. Perception requires awareness. You notice, you reflect, you name. Neuroception asks nothing of you. It runs in the background, faster than thought, deciding whether the world is safe, dangerous, or life-threatening. You can't switch it off. You can only listen or ignore. Think of walking into a crowded room. You haven't spoken to anyone yet, but within seconds you feel it. This room is tense. Or maybe this room is alive and warm. No words were exchanged. Your body decided. The amygdala scanned posture, tone, and micro-expressions. The insula registered the subtle changes in your own heartbeat, your own gut. The vagus nerve shifted gears accordingly, relaxing you if the cues said safety, bracing you if the cues said threat. Neuroception is the body's truth teller. But the brilliance of neuroception is also its burden, because it is not infallible. It is tuned by your history. If you grew up in chaos, your neuroception may lean toward vigilance. Neutral faces may feel threatening. Sudden sounds may jolt you harder than others. If you are surrounded by safety, your neuroception may err toward trust. Warmth is assumed even where danger lurks. This is why two people can enter the same room, meet the same stranger, and walk away with entirely different feelings. The world outside is constant, but the world inside is personal. I remember this from childhood. When adults around me spoke in voices heavy with tension, my body reacted before my mind knew why. My jaw tightened, my shoulders curled in, my voice locked away. Selective mutism, they called it, as though silence were chosen. But it was never a choice. It was neuroception declaring unsafe. My vocal cords froze, my prefrontal cortex dimmed, my body braced. Others pressed me to speak, to explain, to perform. But there were no words left. And the more they demanded, the more unsafe it became. The body knew, even when I could not make sense of it. This is why behaviour can never be reduced to discipline or morality, because so often behaviour is the outer expression of neuroception. A fidget, a silence, a smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. These are not manners, they are messages. The nervous system speaks in real time. Let's pause on this point. Imagine meeting someone new one-on-one. The eye contact is the first volley. Within 100 milliseconds, your amygdala has fired. If the gaze is soft, congruent with a relaxed smile, oxytocin pathways begin to stir, easing the vagus nerve into social engagement. If the gaze is too sharp, too prolonged, or mismatched with the mouth, the amygdala raises alarms. The insula translates that into gut tension. You feel it without knowing why. Next comes the voice. Human beings are wired for prosody, the melodic rise and fall of speech. A warm tone tells the body safe. A clipped monotone or a jagged sharpness signals threat. Polyvagal theory shows how the vagus nerve connects the ear, face, and heart. When the voice soothes, heart rate steadies. When the voice cuts, heart rate spikes. You cannot not respond. Posture is the next clue. Leaning in slightly, head tilted, hands visible, safe. Shoulders hunched forward, arms crossed tightly, jaw clenched. Danger. The brainstem reads posture in milliseconds. Evolutionary inheritance. We survived not by waiting for evidence, but by reacting to posture before the strike came. And then beneath words, the subtlest cue of all, scent. The olfactory bulb connects directly to the amygdala and hippocampus. Smell is memory. Smell is instinct. It bypasses rational thought entirely. Sometimes you recoil from someone and cannot explain it. That is scent whispering danger. Sometimes you lean in, inexplicably drawn. That is scent signaling familiarity, attraction, and safety. Put together, these cues form a rapid-fire assessment. Safe, unsafe. Maybe your conscious mind catches up later, crafting stories to explain why you felt what you felt. But the body decided long before. Neuroception is not just the first judgment. It is the truest one. But here's the catch. Neuroception is shaped by trauma. A child raised in volatility will learn to read danger in every face, every tone. Hypervigilance becomes baseline. The body is rarely wrong, but it can be tilted. Safe may feel dangerous. Dangerous may feel safe if abuse becomes normalized. This is why listening to the body is not always comfortable. Sometimes the body speaks in the voice of memory. Sometimes healing means retuning neuroception, teaching it new patterns of safety. And yet, even when tilted, neuroception still tells the truth of your history. That's why it matters. Now let's add another layer, mirror neurons. In the 1990s, Giacomo Rizzolatti and his team in Parma discovered something astonishing in monkeys. Neurons in the premotor cortex fired not only when the monkey grasped a peanut, but when it watched a human do the same. Action and observation shared circuitry. Later studies in humans extended the idea. When you see someone smile, your mirror neurons activate as though you smiled. When you see someone stub a toe, your brain's pain regions flare as though it happened to you. What does this mean? It means perception is not passive. To see is to simulate, to hear is to embody, to witness is to mirror. The nervous system does not sit back, neutral and detached. It participates. Think of yawns. One yawn in a group spreads like contagion. Think of laughter. A ripple of laughter pulls you in, sometimes before you even hear the joke. Think of fear. When someone nearby stiffens, you feel the electricity jolt your own spine. This is mirror resonance, and it works both ways. When you soften, others soften. When you tense, others tense. Empathy is not an abstract moral virtue. It is a neural reality. We are wired to reflect. This leads us into philosophy. If neuroception constantly scans and mirror neurons constantly echo, then what we call reality may not be raw perception at all. It may be a reflection. Phenomenologists like Husserl and Merleau-Ponty argued that consciousness is always embodied, always filtered through lived experience. You never encounter the world as it is. You encounter it as you are. Lacan took it further. His mirror stage suggested identity itself is formed through reflection, through recognizing ourselves in others. Nietzsche warned that when we gaze into the abyss gazes back. The outer world is not separate from the inner. It responds, reflects, absorbs. Eastern traditions echo this. Taoism speaks of the mirror mind that reflects reality without clinging. Vedanta suggests the outer world is Maya, an illusion shaped by the inner. Zen koans ask us to see that the barrier between self and other is a construction. The world is a mirror, they say, showing us what we carry. So consider this. When you meet another person, is it them you are seeing, or your own nervous system mirrored back? If you are calm, their cues may seem safe. If you are anxious, the same cues may bristle. If you carry shame, you may read rejection where none was intended. If you carry openness, you may invite warmth. Reality is not fixed. It is co-created moment by the states we bring. This is not abstract. It is practical. Anger often breeds anger. Fear often invites control. Safety invites authenticity. The state you embody shapes the state others reflect. This is why manipulation works, not because people are weak, but because bodies reflect bodies. If someone projects overwhelming certainty, your nervous system mirrors it, even against your own doubt. If someone drowns you in flattery, your dopamine spikes, your oxytocin rises, your critical circuits dim. You are not defective. You are human. I've lived this too. There were times when my nervous system screamed the truth, but I overrode it to belong. Times when silence was my refuge, but others called it defiance. Times when charm dazzled me, but my body felt tight, unsettled, wrong. Looking back, I see that my neuroception was rarely mistaken. The mistake was ignoring it. The mistake was trusting cultural scripts over embodied truth. This is the danger of indoctrination, of control, of systemic manipulation, themes I've explored in the Inversiverse. Systems work by overriding the body's truth. They flood you with images, with slogans, with cues of belonging. They teach you to distrust your own neuroception. They make the abnormal normal, until your body's whisper feels like disobedience. But even then, the body knows. It doesn't lie. It can be silenced. It can be distorted by memory. It can be drowned in chemicals, but it does not lie. So let's bring this home for a moment. Think of a recent encounter. Someone new. Did your body feel at ease, or did your stomach tighten? Did your breath deepen, or did it catch? Did you feel drawn forward, or slightly pulled back? These are the whispers of neuroception. Not moral judgments, not social labels, just truth. And here's a practice. Next time you meet someone, before your mind crafts a story, pause. Notice 3 things in your body: your breath, your jaw, your gut. Then ask simply, safe or unsafe? Not perfect safety, not perfect danger, but the tilt. Trust the first whisper. That is your nervous system speaking, before thought, before culture, before conditioning. Because the body does not lie. It reflects. It resonates. It remembers. And it tells the truth, even when you don't want to hear it. When I was young, I didn't have the language for any of this. All I knew was that sometimes my body betrayed me. Sometimes I wanted to speak and no sound would come. Sometimes I wanted to belong, but instead I froze or lashed out or dissolved into tears. Adults told me this was misbehavior, weakness, stubbornness. But I can see now it was my nervous system doing what nervous systems do. My body wasn't against me, it was for me. It was just tuned to the world I grew up in. Selective mutism, shutdowns, meltdowns, these were my survival strategies. Neuroception had learned to err on the side of caution. My body didn't trust easily. It had read too many sharp voices, too many unpredictable moods, too many sudden punishments. The script was written deep. Silence keeps you safe, stillness hides you, collapse avoids escalation. Each time I failed to speak when pressed, each time I folded inward, the adults thought I was refusing. In truth, I was obeying the most ancient part of myself. My body had judged the room unsafe. No argument could override it. And this is where mirror neurons complicate things further. Because when a child freezes, the adults around them mirror that freeze as frustration, as irritation. When a child cries too loudly, the adults mirror stress and anger. Our nervous systems are loops. My shutdown triggered their escalation. Their escalation deepened my shutdown. Two nervous systems locked in resonance, but spiraling in opposite directions. This is why so many of us grow up misread. The adults weren't always cruel. Sometimes they were simply caught in the same trap. Their bodies mirrored ours mirrored theirs. And unless someone pauses to break the loop, the cycle repeats. This is intergenerational transmission. Trauma is not just memory, it resonates. It is one nervous system teaching another what to expect. In My Inner Child Was Broken, I wrote about how overwhelming it was to be pressed for explanations I couldn't give. People demanded words, but words were offline. They saw only defiance. They didn't see the vagus nerve clamping down, the amygdala flooding me with alarm, the anterior cingulate cortex burning with the pain of social rejection. They didn't see the mirror loop where my silence triggered their impatience, and their impatience confirmed my silence. What they read as disobedience was my body's desperate attempt to survive. This is why, as adults, we often find ourselves in relationships that feel hauntingly familiar. We are drawn to the resonance we know. If chaos was home, chaos feels like attraction. If silence was safety, silence feels like love. Our neuroception has been tuned by our history, and our mirror neurons echo it back in others. We think we are choosing freely. Often we are replaying. This is where philosophy helps. Nietzsche warned that we are fated to repeat what we have not brought into consciousness. His idea of eternal recurrence was not just a metaphysical game. It was a psychological truth. What we do not own, we repeat. Lacan suggested the self is formed through the gaze of the other. If so, then the echoes we grew up with are etched into our sense of who we are. Husserl argued that consciousness is always intentional, always reaching outward, but what it reaches for is shaped by the structures within. Eastern traditions would say we live in samsara, the wheel of repetition, until awareness breaks the cycle. So, are we simply mirrors of mirrors, endlessly reflecting each other's wounds? In one sense, yes, our bodies echo each other. Our histories shape what we read, what we trust, what we fear. But in another sense, no, because awareness changes the loop. When you notice that your stomach tightened before your mind made its excuse, you are already breaking the cycle. When you trust your gut instead of dismissing it, you rewire your neuroception. When you soften in the face of another's tension, you change what their mirror neurons reflect back. You disrupt repetition. This is the hope hidden inside the science. Neuroception and mirror neurons are not just traps. They are also keys. They are not only how trauma repeats, they are also how safety spreads. A calm nervous system regulates those around it. A steady voice calms a racing heart. A genuine smile shifts an entire room. You know this from experience. One grounded person can change the atmosphere of a group. That's not magic, that's biology. But it's also philosophy. Because if the body shapes what we see, then changing the body changes reality. Not in the sense of bending spoons or manifesting fantasies, but in the most practical sense. The state you bring shapes the state you perceive. The reality you live in is co-authored by your nervous system. The world outside is not separate from the world inside. This is why indoctrination is so powerful. Systems of power, governments, cults, corporations know that if they can control the body's signals, they can control perception. Flood the nervous system with cues of belonging, smiles, chants, touch, repetition, and you override doubt. Flood it with cues of danger, threats, shaming, isolation, and you collapse dissent. Propaganda doesn't just persuade the mind, it entrains the body. It exploits neuroception and mirror resonance to make the abnormal feel normal. I've traced this in the inversiverse. When a government repeats the same phrase across every channel, when a crowd chants in unison, when images of enemies are plastered everywhere, the nervous system is overwhelmed. Mirror neurons echo the group. Neuroception adjusts to the new normal. You feel what the group feels, even if privately you doubt. Belonging overrides truth. The body has been hijacked. And this is where the danger of manipulation enters at the personal level. Think of the one-on-one encounter again. But now add love bombing. Too much eye contact, too many compliments, too much mirroring. Your dopamine spikes. Your oxytocin rises, your prefrontal cortex quiets. The body is flooded with cues of safety, but the amygdala still whispers doubt. Something is off. But you override it because the chemical flood is louder. You fawn, you freeze, you submit. This is not weakness, it is biology exploited. The same principle scales. An intelligence asset seeking to entrap doesn't begin with threats. They begin with warmth. They mirror your body language. They flatter. They create synchrony. They flood you with false safety cues. And in that fog, you disclose, you agree, you step into the trap. Neuroception is hacked. Mirror neurons are manipulated. Reality is bent, but not by your will, by the will of another exploiting the body's design. And yet, the body still whispers truth. Even in indoctrination, even in entrapment, even in manipulation, the signals are there. The dry mouth, the restless leg, the gut pulling back, the shoulder tightening, the throat closing, before you know. The tragedy is that we are trained to dismiss them. I ignored it often. In childhood, when silence was misread as rebellion. In adolescence, when I overrode my body's discomfort to belong. In adulthood, when charm dazzled me even as my stomach soured. In each case, the nervous system spoke. And in each case, I deferred to culture, to expectation, to the demand to be agreeable. My inner child was broken, yes, but more precisely, my inner child was silenced. Its neuroception was accurate. Its mirror resonance was sharp. But no one wanted to hear it. In Unfiltered Human on the Fringe, I've spoken about envy, lust, anger, shame, all the emotions that hide in shadow. These emotions, too, are part of the body's truth. They surge when boundaries are crossed, when desires are unmet, when safety is threatened. But culture labels them dangerous, sinful, shameful. And so we suppress them. The nervous system speaks, and we smother its voice. The cost is alienation from ourselves. The cost is living in a reality shaped more by indoctrination than by truth. So what do we do with all this? First, we learn to listen, to treat the gut flutter not as an inconvenience, but as data. To notice the tightening jaw not as rudeness, but as warning. To feel the shallow breath not as weakness, but as signal. The body is speaking. Second, we learn to disrupt the loop. When someone mirrors your freeze with frustration, pause. Breathe. Let your calm be the mirror instead. This is how cycles break. Third, we learn to retune neuroception. Safe relationships, therapy, mindfulness. These are ways of teaching the body that not every silence means danger. Not every raised voice means threat. And finally, we recognize the philosophical weight. If every encounter is partly a reflection, then we are not just victims of resonance. We are co-authors. What we embody shapes what we experience. Safety invites authenticity. Calm invites trust. Rage invites conflict. This is not moralism. It is mechanics. To change your reality, change your nervous system. The world you see will change with it. Let's test this with reflection. Think back to an encounter where you felt instant dislike. What did your body sense? Was it the eyes, the tone, the posture? Did you ignore it? What happened later? Now think of an encounter where you felt instant trust. Did your body relax? Did your breath deepen? Did you mirror their calm? These are not accidents, they are reflections. And a practice. This week, in every interaction, pause once. Notice what your body is mirroring. Is your jaw tightening like theirs? Is your breath matching theirs? Is your tone echoing theirs? Then try this, soften deliberately. Relax your shoulders, deepen your breath. Offer a genuine smile, watch what happens. Often, the other mirrors you back. Safety spreads, reality shifts, because neuroception is the truth teller. Mirror neurons are the resonators, and the world we live in is not fixed. It is co-created every second by the bodies we inhabit and the states we bring. We've seen how the nervous system whispers the truth in everyday encounters, how mirror neurons pull us into resonance, and how our histories tune what we read. But the story doesn't end with individuals, because what happens in one-on-one meetings can be scaled, refined, and weaponized by systems of power. This is why propaganda works, not because people are stupid, not because people are weak, but because propaganda speaks the language of the nervous system. It bypasses reason, it overwhelms neuroception, it hijacks mirror resonance. Think of a rally. chants in unison, flags waving in rhythm, a leader's voice booming through speakers. Your amygdala registers the synchrony. Your mirror neurons echo the crowd's fervor. Your vagus nerve receives cues of belonging. Your dopamine spikes with the thrill of togetherness. Your oxytocin rises as strangers become kin. In that flood, dissent feels dangerous. Critical thought feels lonely. Belonging feels safe. This is not illusion. It is biology turned against you. Cult dynamics are the same. Love bombing on a mass scale. Smiles, hugs, chants, songs. You are flooded with safety cues. Your nervous system relaxes. Your doubts quieten. The body says, I belong here. And yet, often beneath that warmth, there is tension. A gut twist, a subtle unease, neuroception whispers, not safe. But the flood is louder. You override the whisper. That is the mechanism of control. Governments, intelligence agencies, corporations, those who study power understand this. Entrapment often begins not with threat, but with charm. A friendly face, a reassuring voice, an invitation that feels flattering. They mirror your body language, reflect your values, amplify your sense of uniqueness. You feel seen, you feel safe, and in that space you disclose, you agree, you step closer. By the time the trap closes, your nervous system has been played like an instrument. But here's the paradox. Even in manipulation, even in entrapment, the body still knows. Neuroception is never fully silent. The dry mouth, the tightening throat, the restless leg under the table, the smile that feels forced. These are not malfunctions. They are signals. The tragedy is that we are trained to dismiss them. I think back to times in my own life when I ignored those signals. Times when charm dazzled me, but my stomach clenched. Times when authority spoke and my throat locked. Times when I laughed along while every fibre of me wanted to leave. Each time the body spoke first. Each time I overrode it. I believed culture over biology. I trusted appearances over signals. That is how I was broken. Not by the body lying, but by being taught not to listen. In the Inversiverse, I explored how indoctrination works not just through words, but through the body. Schools teach children to sit still, to silence impulses, to override neuroception. Religions teach conformity of posture, voice, gesture. Corporations cultivate smiles that don't reach the eyes. Governments cultivate fear that never sleeps. These are not accidents. They are training the body to ignore its own truth, to distrust its own signals, to be more docile, to be more useful, and yet the body resists. In quiet ways, the burnout, the anxiety, the depression, the sudden rage that seems out of nowhere. These are the nervous system rebelling against indoctrination. They are the signals returning, louder this time, demanding to be heard. So where does philosophy leave us? Are we doomed to be mirrors of mirrors, caught in endless loops of manipulation and reflection? Or do we have agency? I believe awareness is the turning point. Husserl said consciousness is always intentional, always reaching outward, but we can change how we reach. Merleau-Ponty argued that perception is embodied, but embodiment can be cultivated. Nietzsche reminded us that when we stare into the abyss stares back. But what if, instead of fear, we bring compassion into that gaze? Then what stares back may be compassion too. Eastern traditions offer a different frame. Taoism speaks of wu-wei, action through alignment rather than force. If the world is a mirror, then alignment within shapes harmony without. Buddhism speaks of mindfulness, the moment-by-moment awareness that interrupts samsara, the wheel of repetition. Vedanta suggests that the world is maya, but awareness pierces illusion. Each of these traditions, in their own way, points to the same truth. What you embody is what you encounter. This is not mystical optimism. It is grounded in the mechanics of neuroception and mirror resonance. Safety invites safety. Calm invites calm. If you want the world to change, change your state. If you want to see differently, feel differently. Reality is not just out there. It is co-authored here in your nervous system. So let's bring this home with reflection. Think back to a time when you ignored your gut. What happened? Did the charm wear off and the mask fall? Did the truth reveal itself too late? And now think of a time when you trusted your body's whisper, when you walked away or said no or spoke up. What happened then? The difference is not just anecdotal. It is survival, now a practice. Wherever you are, pause. Notice your breath. Notice your jaw. Notice your gut. Ask quietly, safe or unsafe. Don't force the answer. Let the body whisper. Then recall one encounter from the past week where you overrode that whisper. Replay it. Where did you feel it? What did you do instead? And now imagine choosing differently. What might have changed? These practices are not trivial. They are rewiring. Each time you listen, you strengthen the loop between body and awareness. Each time you trust the whisper, you retune neuroception. Each time you soften in resonance, you change the mirror. This is how reality shifts, not by bending the world from the outside, but by inhabiting the body fully from the inside. Because the body does not lie. It may be silenced, but it speaks again. It may be drowned, but it resurfaces. It may be hijacked, but it resists. It is the truth teller, the mirror, the script, the witness. And when you listen, the world itself begins to change. This has been episode 2 of The Body Knows. We've journeyed into neuroception, mirror resonance, manipulation, indoctrination, and the possibility that reality itself is partly a reflection of what we carry inside. If this resonated with you, I encourage you to pause, breathe, and pay attention to what your body is saying, even in the smallest of ways. In our next episode, we'll go deeper into the nervous system itself. The body as a truth teller continues, but this time through the lens of the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn responses. We'll explore what happens in those moments when the body takes over completely. And remember, this series lives alongside my other projects. In the Inversiverse, I explore the systems and illusions that shape our perception. In the Unfiltered Human on the Fringe, I dive into the shadow emotions we're taught to hide. Together, they weave a tapestry of truth that begins in the body, stretches into culture, and circles back into the self. Until next time, listen closely. Your body already knows, remember, James Miller.